The night was heavy with shouting. Ava stood frozen in the living room, her heart pounding so hard it almost drowned out her mother's voice. Elaine's words cut sharper than any knife. "Get out, Ava. I can't do this anymore. Pack your things and leave my house." Her house. The words stung like fire. This was the only home Ava had ever known, the walls built by her late father's hands, the rooms filled with memories of a childhood that now felt like a lie. She looked at her mother, hoping to see even the smallest flicker of hesitation. But Elaine's eyes were hard, her body angled toward Richard, her husband, as if waiting for his approval. Richard leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, lips curled into a smug smirk. He didn't need to say a word. His presence said it all. This was what he wanted. Ava could see the quiet triumph in his eyes. Her suitcase was already on the floor by the door, stuffed in a hurry. She hadn't even packed it herself. Megan, her stepsister, tossed a sweater on top with a laugh. "Don't forget this. Wouldn't want you crying without your comfort clothes." Tyler, leaning on the staircase rail, added with mock pity, "Guess it's survival of the fittest, sis. And you? You lost." Their laughter echoed in the house, sharp and cruel, as if her pain was some kind of joke. Ava tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She looked back at her mother, pleading without sound, her eyes wet. "Mom, you don't mean this," she whispered at last, her voice trembling. But Elaine didn't flinch. She only pulled Richard closer by the arm. "You've disrespected me, disrespected this family. I won't have it. Leave." It was as if the floor dropped beneath her. Ava's chest tightened, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. Her mother's face, once the face that sang her lullabies and kissed her scraped knees, was now cold stone. She bent down, her hands shaking, and picked up the suitcase. The wheels rattled against the floor as she dragged it to the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. She wanted to scream, to ask why her mother was choosing strangers over her own daughter. But the words wouldn't come. Only the silence, heavy and raw, followed her. At the doorway, she paused, turning one last time. Richard was still smirking, Tyler and Megan still grinning. And Elaine, her own mother, looked away. Ava stepped outside. The door shut behind her with a slam that echoed like a final goodbye. In the darkness of the night, suitcase by her side, Ava stood numb and broken. Her heart whispered questions she couldn't silence. Why her? Why was her mother siding with them? What had she done to deserve this? The cold air stung her face, and she realized something that made her knees almost buckle. She was alone now. Truly, terrifyingly alone. Ava was 23, but most days she felt much older. She had always been the responsible one, the girl who took on too much too early. While other kids were carefree, she was the one helping with chores, making lists, studying late, and dreaming of building a better future. Her father used to call her his little anchor, the one who kept everything steady. Her father had been her safe place. He had a way of making her believe she could do anything. But after he passed away when she was 16, the world shifted in a way she wasn't ready for. The house grew quieter, emptier, and the bond she had with her mother began to crack. Elaine remarried 2 years later, and with that came Richard. Richard was charming at first. He carried himself like a man who could fix broken things, who could take care of a grieving family. But it didn't take long for Ava to see through him. He was controlling, always making small digs that wore her down. He wanted to be the center of the house, the one who called the shots. Slowly, Ava noticed her mother leaning on him more, listening to him more, even when his words were sharp and unfair. And with Richard came his 2 children, Tyler and Megan. Tyler was 21 now, cocky and careless, the kind of boy who thought the world owed him something. He walked around the house as if he already owned it, feet up on the coffee table, barking orders at Ava like she was a servant. Megan, at 19, was quieter but more dangerous. She had a sweet face and a sharp tongue, and she loved to twist stories so that Ava always looked like the bad one. Together, they were a team that made Ava feel like an outsider in her own home. The painful part was how easily her mother let it happen. There were days when Ava tried to remind herself of the woman her mom used to be, the mom who stayed up all night when she had fevers, who taught her to braid her hair, who laughed with her while baking cookies. But that woman seemed to fade more and more, replaced by someone who looked at her through Richard's eyes. Every time Richard criticized Ava, Her mother stayed silent, or worse, agreed. It was as though Elaine believed her daughter's worth had lessened the moment she chose Richard's family. What Richard and his kids didn't know was the truth about the house. Ava's father had left behind assets, including the deed to the family home. He had wanted to make sure Ava was protected, that she always had a place to belong. By law, the house belonged to her, not Elaine, not Richard, not Tyler or Megan. But Ava had never spoken about it. She let her mother and the step-family live there, telling herself it was the right thing to do. Maybe, she thought, if she sacrificed quietly, her mother would see how much she loved her. That silence came at a cost. Ava learned to keep her feelings buried, swallowing every insult, every eye roll, every moment of being pushed aside. She carried that weight alone because admitting how much it hurt felt like admitting defeat. Still, under the pain, there was a kind of resilience. She worked hard, studied harder, and planned for a life where she wouldn't have to beg anyone for love or approval. Yet no matter how much she tried to grow past it, the little girl inside her still wanted her mother's arms around her, still wanted to hear the words, "I'm proud of you." Every time Elaine chose Richard or his children over her, it felt like another door shutting in her face. But Ava kept hoping one day her mother would remember who they had been before. Hoping she'd stop seeing Ava as the problem and start seeing her as the daughter she once loved. Ava lived in that fragile balance, responsible, ambitious, carrying the weight of her father's memory, yet standing in the shadow of a family who treated her like she didn't belong. She endured because she believed things might change. She endured because she thought love was worth waiting for. But deep down, she also knew this couldn't last forever. The tension was building, the cracks in her life spreading wider. One day, something would have to break. It started on an ordinary evening, the kind of night that should have been quiet. Ava had just come home from work, tired but relieved to be back at her room, the one place that still felt like hers. She was setting her bag down when she heard Richard's voice from the kitchen. It was sharp, filled with the fake authority he always used when he wanted to stir trouble. "There she is," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The princess who thinks she's better than the rest of us." Ava froze. She hadn't even spoken yet. She walked in slowly, confused. Elaine sat at the table, arms folded, eyes already cold. Tyler leaned against the fridge, grinning, and Megan twirled a strand of hair, pretending to look innocent, but waiting for the show to start. "What are you talking about?" Ava asked, her voice careful, tired of this endless game. Richard pushed himself up from his chair, pacing. "You come and go as you please, you don't respect this family, and you act like you're the victim every time someone calls you out. It's selfish, Ava. We all see it." Ava's chest tightened. She looked at her mother, hoping for some defense, some word of comfort. But Elaine shook her head. "I can't keep living with this tension. You make everything harder." Her throat went dry. "I work, I study, I clean this house. What more do you want from me?" Megan smirked. "Maybe a little gratitude. Richard feeds you, keeps a roof over your head. That roof was built by my father." Ava snapped before she could stop herself. Her voice cracked, the hurt pouring out. The room went still. Richard's eyes narrowed, and Elaine gasped as if Ava had crossed some forbidden line. "Don't bring your father into this," her mother hissed. "You're disrespecting us right now." "Us," Ava repeated, her voice breaking. "I'm your daughter, Mom. Your daughter. But you're standing there letting them tear me apart. Don't you see how cruel they are?" Tyler laughed, clapping slowly, like it was some kind of performance. "Wow. Oscar-worthy breakdown. Maybe you should pack your bags and take your drama somewhere else." "Tyler," Ava whispered, her fists shaking. "This is my home." "Not anymore," Richard said firmly. He looked at Elaine, his eyes daring her to disagree. "She doesn't belong here. She's poison to this family. Tell her to go." Ava's heart stopped. She turned to her mother, desperate. "Mom, please, please don't do this. I've done everything you asked. I've tried so hard." But Elaine's lips pressed together, and then came the words that split Ava's world in two. "Ava, it's time for you to leave." Her knees weakened, and tears blurred her vision. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "Tell me you don't mean that." "I can't live like this anymore," Elaine said, looking away. "You're tearing this family apart." Richard stepped forward, opening the door with a cruel smile. "There's the way out. Don't make it harder, then it has to be. Megan giggled. Tyler whistled like it was entertainment. Ava's whole body shook. She wanted to scream, to beg, to fight for the love she thought she still had. But all she could do was cry. I have nowhere to go, she choked out. I'm your child. How can you just throw me away? Elaine turned her face, as if Ava's tears were too much to watch. Go. That was it. The final word. Ava dragged her small suitcase down the hall, her vision blurred, her breath shallow. Every laugh from Tyler and Megan felt like a knife in her back. Richard's smirk burned into her mind. And her mother's silence. Her mother's silence crushed her more than anything. The door slammed shut behind her. Ava stood outside, trembling under the night sky, her suitcase heavy at her side. Her world had collapsed in a single evening. She was homeless, unwanted, broken by the one person she thought would never betray her. But in the middle of her despair, a thought flickered in her mind. They had forgotten something. Richard and his children could laugh, her mother could choose their side, but none of them knew the truth she carried deep inside. The deed of the house was in her name, and one day, they would remember it the hard way. The first nights after being thrown out were the hardest. Ava carried her suitcase like a scar, moving from one friend's couch to another. She tried to act grateful, to smile when people said, "You can stay as long as you need," but inside, she was hollow. Every morning, she woke up staring at someone else's ceiling, her heart sinking at the thought that she no longer had a place of her own. The shame followed her everywhere. Neighbors who had once waved kindly now whispered when she passed. She could feel their eyes on her, the way they leaned close and muttered. Richard had already spread his version of the story, how Ava was disrespectful, selfish, and impossible to live with. He told anyone who would listen that he and Elaine had no choice but to protect their family from her negativity. By the time Ava heard it, the damage was done. People looked at her not with pity, but with judgment, as if she had truly been the problem all along. One evening, while sitting at a cafe with her friend Clara, Ava overheard two women at the next table. They were neighbors from her street, and their words made Ava's chest burn. "Elaine's so lucky to have Richard," one said. "He stepped up as the real father of that home. You know how hard it must be raising kids who don't respect you." The other nodded. "I heard Ava was out of control. Richard did the right thing. That house is better off without her." Ava sat frozen, her cup trembling in her hand. Clara noticed and quickly reached over to squeeze her arm, but it was too late. The words had already sunk deep, each one like a stone pressing on her chest. That night, Clara tried to comfort her. "You know they're wrong, Ava. Richard's twisting everything. People only see what he wants them to see." But Ava couldn't shake the image of her mother calling Richard the real father. Those words haunted her more than anything. If her mother truly believed that, where did that leave Ava? Back at the house, things grew worse in her absence. Tyler and Megan began throwing loud parties, posting pictures online of themselves lounging in the living room, drinking on the back porch, laughing in the kitchen that had once been her safe corner. They posed with their friends, calling it our house in every caption. Ava saw the photos through mutual friends, and each time, it felt like someone punched her in the stomach. They weren't just enjoying the home, they were celebrating her absence. She imagined her father's face, how proud he had been of their home, how hard he had worked for it. The thought of strangers dancing on his floors, spilling drinks on his carpets, mocking the place he built, it tore her apart. She wanted to storm in, to scream at them, to throw them out with the deed in her hand. She wanted them to know they were guests in her house, not the other way around. But when her anger burned hottest, something softer always crept in. A picture of her mother's face. A memory of them baking together, laughing, or sitting on the porch with hot tea. That longing was a chain around Ava's heart. She told herself that if she fought back, if she claimed her rights, she might lose her mother forever. And despite everything, some part of her still wanted her mother's love. Her friends grew frustrated watching her struggle. Clara, especially, was firm. "Ava, you can't keep living like this. You're sleeping on couches while strangers trash your home. Your father left that house for you. It's yours. You need to fight for it." Another friend, Jonah, added, "You don't owe them kindness. They didn't show you any. You have the law on your side, and you know it." Ava listened, nodding, but deep down, fear held her back. What if she went to court, and her mother stood on the other side, glaring at her like a stranger. What if claiming her home meant losing the last piece of their bond? She lay awake night after night, torn between anger and grief, between vengeance and hope. Sometimes she dreamed of walking back into the house with the deed in her hands, Richard's smug face crumbling as he realized his lies no longer worked. She pictured Tyler and Megan running upstairs, scrambling to pack, no longer so proud. She imagined her mother finally looking at her with wide eyes, realizing she had chosen wrong. But then, other nights, she dreamed of her mother reaching for her hand, saying she was sorry, that she had made a mistake, that she wanted Ava back. Those dreams broke her heart even more, because when she woke up, she remembered the truth. Her mother hadn't fought for her. The days stretched on, heavy and long. Ava carried her pain quietly, smiling for friends, keeping her head down at work, pretending she was fine. But inside, the storm grew. She couldn't keep living in the shadows, watching her step-family celebrate their victory in a home that wasn't theirs. Something had to change. She knew it. She just didn't know if she had the strength yet to face what that change would cost. The news came to Ava through Clara. She had been scrolling through local listings when she saw it. The family home, Ava's home, posted for sale online. Photos of the rooms flashed across the screen, rooms Ava knew by heart. Her father's study, the living room where they had celebrated birthdays, even her own old bedroom. It was all there, advertised as if it were just another property. Ava's hands went cold when Clara showed her. "They can't do this," she whispered. But deep inside, fear gripped her. Richard would stop at nothing. That night, Ava pulled out the folder she had hidden for years. Inside was the deed, her father's signature on the papers, her name printed clearly as the legal owner. She had always kept it safe, never imagining she would need it so soon. For a long time, she sat staring at the papers, her father's handwriting staring back at her. The silence in the room pressed heavy on her chest. This was the moment. If she didn't act now, the home her father built would be lost forever. The next day, Ava walked to the house. Her heart thudded with every step, but her grip on the folder was steady. When she reached the door, laughter spilled from inside. Music, voices, the sound of Tyler and Megan enjoying themselves. She rang the bell, and the noise died down. Richard opened the door, his smirk ready as always. "Well, look who finally crawled back," he said. "You miss being thrown out?" Ava stood tall. "We need to talk." Richard leaned against the frame, blocking her view. "I don't think there's anything to say." "Yes," Ava said firmly, her voice louder than she expected. "There is." Elaine appeared behind him, her face pale. "Ava, why are you here?" "Because I know what you're trying to do," Ava answered, lifting the folder. "You're selling the house." "My father's house." Richard chuckled, but his eyes narrowed. "And what of it? It's our house now. We don't need your permission." Ava opened the folder and pulled out the deed. Her hands shook, but she raised her voice so everyone could hear. "You do need my permission, because this house isn't yours. It never was. Dad left it to me. My name is on the deed. Not Mom's, not Richard's, not anyone else's. Mine." For a moment, the room was silent. Tyler and Megan stood at the bottom of the stairs, their faces falling as the words sank in. Elaine stared at the papers, her lips parting in shock. Richard's smirk vanished. He snatched the papers from Ava's hand, scanning them quickly. His face reddened. This means nothing," he growled. "You think a piece of paper will stop me?" Ava stepped forward, her fear melting into fire. "It's not just a piece of paper. It's the law. It's proof. This house was never yours to give away, and it was never yours to sell." She turned to her mother, her voice trembling with pain. "You chose them over me, Mom. You threw me out. But this house, this home, was never yours to give away." Elaine's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Richard as if searching for an answer, but for once, he had none. "You ungrateful brat," Richard snapped, throwing the papers back at her. He stepped closer, his voice rising, his hand twitching at his side as if he wanted to shove her out the door again. "You think you can walk in here and take everything from us? You think you're stronger than me?" Ava stood her ground, her legs shaking but her voice steady. "I don't need to be stronger than you. I just need the truth. And the truth is, you've been living in my house, mocking me in my own home, and lying to everyone. It ends today." Richard raised his hand as if to strike, but Elaine gasped and grabbed his arm. "Richard, stop," she cried. For the first time, she looked at Ava with something other than anger, something closer to fear. Tyler and Megan stayed silent, their bravado gone. The house no longer felt like theirs, and they knew it. Ava bent to pick up the deed from the floor. She straightened her back and met Richard's glare, without flinching. "You can threaten me, you can call me names, but you can't erase the truth. This house belongs to me, and you're done here." For the first time, Richard had no clever reply. The silence that followed was louder than any insult. The days after the confrontation moved quickly. Ava wasted no time. With the deed in her hands, she went straight to a lawyer. The lawyer confirmed everything she already knew. The house was hers. Legally, Richard had no power, and neither did his children. All Ava needed was to file the paperwork to enforce her rights. When the notice was delivered to the house, Richard's fury was louder than ever. Neighbors heard his shouting, saw him pacing on the porch, but this time, Ava didn't care about whispers. For years she had lived in fear of his voice, but now it was nothing more than noise. Within days, Richard and his kids were forced to pack their things. Tyler complained loudly, Megan cried dramatically, but the truth was plain. They had no claim, no power. Their victory party was over. Elaine was different. She didn't shout or argue. Instead, she stood in the living room as if the ground beneath her feet was breaking apart. She watched as Richard's boxes piled up near the door, her face pale, her eyes heavy with regret. When Richard finally stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook, Elaine turned to Ava. Her voice trembled. "Ava, please don't make me leave. This is my home too." Ava stared at her, the woman she had loved all her life, the woman who had chosen someone else over her. For a long moment, she couldn't speak. The pain was still raw, but so was the power she now held. She thought of her father, of how much he had loved her, how he had trusted her with his home. She couldn't betray that trust. "You can stay," Ava said at last, her voice steady but firm. Elaine's eyes lit with hope, but Ava raised a hand. "But things won't ever be the same. Richard and his kids are gone for good, and you don't get to treat me like I don't matter anymore. If you stay as my mother, not as Richard's wife, not as their defender. Do you understand?" Elaine's lips trembled. She nodded quickly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I was wrong, Ava. I see that now. I should have protected you, not pushed you away. Please let me make it right." For the first time, Ava didn't feel like the child begging for love. She wasn't standing small in front of her mother's cold stare. She was standing tall, holding the house, the truth, and herself with a strength she hadn't known she carried. "I'm not the same girl you threw out," Ava said quietly. "I don't need your approval anymore. I'll give you a chance, Mom, but I won't let you break me again." Elaine cried openly then, covering her face, whispering apologies over and over. But Ava didn't reach out to comfort her this time. She simply walked past her, set the deed back on the table, and let the silence of the house settle around them. The home felt different now. It wasn't heavy with shame or filled with mocking laughter. It was hers again, hers to protect, hers to rebuild, hers to honor her father's memory. For the first time in years, Ava felt free. She had taken control of the life that was always meant to be hers. She was no longer the neglected daughter waiting for scraps of love. She was the woman who had faced betrayal and chosen herself. And she knew, as she looked around the house, that this was only the beginning of her new story. The house was quiet now. Boxes were gone, voices were gone, and for the first time in years, there was peace. Ava walked slowly through the living room, her fingers brushing against the walls she had grown up with. It felt almost like the house itself was breathing again, no longer weighed down by anger and cruelty. On the mantel sat her father's old photo. She picked it up gently, her thumb tracing the frame. His smile was warm, the same smile that had carried her through childhood. For so long, she had felt abandoned after he passed, left to fight for scraps of love in her own home. But standing there now, she realized she had never truly been alone. He had trusted her. He had given her the strength she was finally learning to see in herself. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but they were different this time. Not the helpless tears of rejection, but the soft release of a weight she had carried too long. She whispered softly, I did it, Dad. I didn't let them take what you built. I didn't let them take me. The house echoed with silence, but it no longer felt empty. It felt like hers. It was both a victory and a loss. She had fought for her place, and she had won, but she had also accepted that her mother's love would never be the way it once was. That truth hurt, but it didn't break her anymore. She set the photo back in its place and took a deep breath, filling her lungs with a quiet air of home. Ava knew life wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she was stronger than she had ever believed. She had lost her mother's unconditional love, but in its place, she had found something greater, herself. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Hey besties, thanks for watching till the end. Imagine being kicked out of your own father's house by your mom and stepdad, only to rise back stronger and reclaim what was yours all along. Painful, but powerful, right? Sometimes betrayal opens the door to strength and self-worth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe for more. See you in the next one.